Today we will recap the Spider-Man No Way Home movie. You must have seen the previous movie parts of Spider-Man. Only then you will be able to understand this part of this movie. If you want me to recap the previous parts of Spider-Man as well, then you can tell in the comments. J. Jonah Jameson of the Daily Bugle has exposed Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man to the world, while simultaneously framing him as the individual responsible for Mysterio's death in an alleged mass casualty event in London. Civilians nearby begin to surround Spider-Man and Michelle Jones, forcing them to flee from the media and the police. They hide in Parker's apartment and reunite with May Parker and Happy Hogan. Not long after, the Department of Damage Control take them along with Ned Leeds in their custody for interrogation. Parker hires Matt Murdock to represent him, who manages to get his criminal charges dropped. However, as Parker, Jones, and Leeds return to Midtown School of Science and Technology for their senior year, the negative publicity causes them to be rejected from every college they apply to, including MIT. Parker visits the New York Sanctum and asks Dr. Strange to make the identity of Spider-Man a secret once more. Despite being warned by Wong not to, Strange attempts to cast the spell. However, Parker incessantly requests various individuals close to him to be exempt from its effects. As a result, the spell becomes unstable, forcing Strange to contain it. For not consulting with college administrators before meeting with him, Strange furiously kicks Parker out of the sanctum. Contacting Flash Thompson, who was admitted to MIT, Parker is led to an administrator heading to the Alexander Hamilton Bridge in an attempt to appeal his, Jones's and Leeds' applications. Parker is suddenly ambushed by Otto Octavius, who seems to know him personally. Octavius grabs him and rips out a piece of the Iron Spider armor, transferring its nanites onto his tentacles. He goes for another strike, but Parker reveals his face, which is unfamiliar to him. Parker then takes control of Octavius' tentacles with the suit's nanites and rescues the MIT admin from falling off the bridge, who decides to help get him and his friends admitted out of gratitude. The Green Goblin arrives and attempts to attack Parker, but he and Octavius are transported into the sanctum, where Strange imprisons Octavius and the Lizard. He informs Parker that Octavius, the Lizard, and the Green Goblin are not of this universe, but from parallel realities within the multiverse, who were pulled into this reality by the failed spell since they know Spider-Man's identity. To contain this spell, Strange locks it in the Machina Decadivus, a mystical containment unit. Parker is recruited to help find and capture these visitors, receiving a magic-based upgrade to his suit. With assistance from Jones and Leeds, Parker locates Max Dillon as he materializes his body out of electricity. Startled, he attacks Parker and gains the upper hand, but Flint Marko intervenes to shield the boy. The two work together to cut the power lines, which fully restores Dillon's body. When he is sent to the sanctum, Marko believes Parker killed him, but is also captured before he can retaliate. Elsewhere, Norman Osborn attempts to escape from the Green Goblin, breaking his mask before fleeing to a FEST facility seeking refuge. Parker locates Osborn thanks to May and brings him to the sanctum as well. Osborn, Octavius, and Dillon soon realize that they were spared from death by being brought into this universe moments before they were thought to have perished. Strange explains to Parker that these three are doomed to die fighting their own Spider-Men. He intends to use the Machina to reverse the spell and send them back to their fates for the sake of the greater multiverse. Convinced that they can be cured of their antagonistic natures and be spared from death, Parker steals the Machina before Strange can use it and flees. Strange gives chase, takes Parker's magic back, and sends him into the mirror dimension to retrieve the Machina, while also trying to implore him of the multiversal stakes, relying on the visitors being sent back. Unfazed, Parker entangles Strange in a web matrix and steals his sling ring before returning to the earthly plane. He passes the ring to Leeds and the Machina to Jones and releases the prisoners from confinement. Taking them to Hogan's condominium, Parker attempts to administer cures for the multiversal refugees. He starts with Octavius, using a Stark Industries fabricator to engineer a replacement inhibitor chip for his tentacles and restore his higher brain function. In addition, Dillon has a device installed into him which is designed to extract his powers. But before he could affect Osborn, the Green Goblin takes over his body, who persuades Dillon to remove the neutralizer before it can fully take away his abilities. He steals an arc reactor and, drawing its power, blasts Octavius out of the building. The Lizard, Marco, and Dylan escape, while the Goblin attacks Parker, sending him to the ground floor. Running outside, May injects an antidote into the Goblin, which doesn't work. She is struck by his glider. He tosses 2 pumpkin bombs, which Parker fails to block and explodes in their proximity.
Parker manages to locate May in the rubble. Unaware that she had been gravely injured, May tells her nephew not to give up helping others despite all odds, lecturing him that with great power comes great responsibility. As officers surround them, Parker tries to save May, to no avail. Hogan arrives on the scene and is immediately apprehended by authorities. Grief-stricken, Parker flees, his guilt worsening with Jameson's media gaslighting. Growing worrisome after Parker's silence, Jones prepares to activate the machina, but Leeds manages to open a portal with the sling ring by accident. Attempting to find Parker, they see what seems to be their Spider-Man on the other side of the portal, calling him over. However, they soon realize that this Spider-Man is not theirs, but rather one from another universe that previously fought the Lizard and Dylan. Leeds tries again, but summons yet another alternate Spider-Man, who previously fought the Goblin, Octavius, and Marco. The group finally manage to find their Parker alone on top of Midtown and attempt to console him about May, but he is too distraught about his mistakes to even care. Before he can use the machina to send the alternate Spider-Men home, they begin sharing their own personal experiences of loss and bitterness to help him cope and realize that he is not alone. The Parkers, Jones, and Leeds then retreat to a classroom laboratory. Osborn's Parker engineers an anti-serum for the Goblin as Dylan's Parker recreates the Lizard antidote, while Parker prepares the cures for Marco and Dylan. Afterwards, Leeds brings them to the Statue of Liberty via a portal as he and Jones remain in the lab. Parker calls into the Daily Bugle to broadcast a message, using the machina as a lure while announcing his presence to the Lizard, Dylan, and Marco. They arrive and attack the 3 Spider-Men on the scaffolding. The web-slingers are unable to coordinate effectively, which leads them to be easily overpowered by their enemies. Grouping up, Parker assumes command of the trio due to his experience as part of the Avengers. The 3 adopt codenames: Parker as Peter 1, the Parker from Osborn's universe as Peter 2, and the Parker from Dylan's universe as Peter 3. They decide to engage and cure one enemy at a time, with Marco first. Parker then confronts Dylan, Peter 2 faces Marco, and Peter 3 fights the Lizard. Peter 3 retrieves Marco's cure and passes the device to Parker. As Peter 3 restrains the Lizard, Parker delivers the cure to Peter 2, allowing Marco to be neutralized. The 3 Spider-Men attempt to take the arc reactor from Dylan, but he proves to be too much of a match for them due to his increased power from the energy source. The Lizard breaks free and attacks Jones and Leeds in the lab, forcing Parker to leave and fight him. With the help of Leeds and his sling ring, Parker forces the Lizard to break open a bottle containing the antidote which reverts him back to his human form, Kurt Connors. Leeds accidentally summons Strange to the battlefield who, upon seeing Connors, realizes Parker's pacifist plan is working. Strange grabs back the machina and his sling ring from Leeds. Peter 2 and Peter 3 are overpowered by Dylan, until Octavius arrives to extract the arc reactor himself and render him powerless with the finished neutralizer. Peter 3 reconciles with Dylan while Peter 2 warmly reunites with Octavius. Parker returns to Strange as he prepares to use the machina to send everyone home. The Goblin ambushes the group and takes the machina, but Octavius and Strange grab it back. Unbeknownst to them, the Goblin had snuck a pumpkin bomb inside the object. It detonates, releasing the unstable contained spell, resulting in dimensional rifts materializing within the earthly plane. The blast also causes Jones to fall from the Statue of Liberty. Parker dives to rescue her, but is knocked aside by the Goblin. Peter 3 saves her, and begins to tear up as it reminded him of the night Gwen Stacy died. As dawn breaks, Parker confronts the Goblin alone. Ravaged with vengeance, he viciously beats him down and attempts to finish him off with his glider, but is stopped by Peter 2. This however leaves him open to get stabbed in the back by the Goblin. Peter 3 provides Parker with the anti-serum, allowing him to cure Osborn from the Goblin. He notices Peter 2's injury, which was non-fatal, and realizes the extent of the damage he had caused. Strange struggles to hold the dimensional rifts together, in which intruders are already preparing to invade this reality. However, Parker has him enact a new spell to make everyone forget who he is to fix it. Parker embraces his alternate selves, who encourage him to continue on as Spider-Man. Strange repairs the rifts with the new spell and successfully transports Peter 2, Peter 3, Dylan, Octavius, Osborn, Marco and Connors back to their origin universes, along with Eddie Brock, who unknowingly leaves behind a small remnant of the Venom symbiote in his place. Parker embraces Leeds and Jones for a final time, who make him promise to return someday and help them remember him. He then departs as Strange unleashes the spell, leaving the entire world completely oblivious to Parker's existence. A few weeks later, it is now the holidays. Parker tries to reconnect with his MIT-bound friends, but after being reminded of Jones's wounds, he decides not to. He visits May's grave to pay his respects and is joined by Hogan, who is also now a stranger to him. Vowing to carry on, Parker drops out of high school, moves into a new apartment alone, and begins studying to earn his GED. Alerted to criminal activity on his phone, he stitches together a simpler suit and resumes his heroics undisturbed as Spider-Man, honoring May's mantra of community service and responsibility. So friends, this was the story of the movie Spider-Man No Way Home. Please subscribe my channel, and if you like the video then please give a like and comment. And wait, don't forget to click on the notification bell.